Hello and welcome to Open Line. I'm Starlene Stringer. Well, it's mosquito season and there is a big reason to pay even closer attention to the pesky bugs this year. In fact, two in particular. On the program today, we're going to learn about the concerns and explain how to best protect yourself and your family. Our special guests are City of Irving Mosquito Control Coordinator Thomas Dickens and Dallas County Health and Human Services Medical Director Dr. Christopher Perkins. I want to thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Well, I know it's a busy season for you both and that the city has already taken action. So Thomas, traps are already out there for the year, right?
Yes, we've gone full tilt with our trapping for this season. We're going to be setting about 15 traps per week. Typically that's going to be a minimum of number of traps. And the beginning of May is really the beginning for us for mosquito season. We've been seeing mosquitoes for a few months now, but we're now with the warmer weather, we're going to see more of an abundance of mosquitoes. So we'll be doing at least 15 traps per week.
So we were taking a look at some of those traps as you were talking about that, and I have to ask you, so what happens once those mosquitoes are caught in the traps?
Well, what we do is we take those mosquitoes that we catch and we send them out to the laboratories. And what they're going to do for us is they're going to identify what kind of mosquitoes we caught in those traps, and they're also going to test those mosquitoes for diseases like West Nile.
Okay, and so with the mild winter we had around here, any predictions on how many mosquitoes we might see?
Number-wise, I'm not quite sure. It's probably going to be quite a few. The warm weather and all this precipitation we've been having and the flooding is going to really impact us. So we likely will have a very similar year to last year, which we did see a lot of mosquito activity in our area. So it's likely to be very similar to that.
Okay, and there's not just mosquito concerns around here, they're worldwide. And so, Dr. Perkins, we've been hearing a lot about Zika virus, and we keep hearing that it's mainly or has been imported. What exactly does that mean?
Yes, as far as Zika clinical presentation in Dallas County, we have 6 confirmed cases, all associated with travel. Of the 6, they had direct travel to the tropical regions of the Americas. One had relationships with one of the travelers that resulted in a locally acquired infection via another citizen, but not by mosquito. In regards to the Zika threat, in February of 2015, PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, put out an advisory of a heightened concern that the Zika virus was going to possibly spread throughout the Americas. And then in March of last year, the World Health Organization definitely put out a health advisory associated with the increased number of cases in Brazil that were being spread by the local mosquitoes there. And then later on, we started seeing a correlation between Zika infection and in pregnant women and subsequent birth defects in some of the children that were born to those women that had been infected.
Wow, and we'll talk and elaborate a little bit more on that, but I want to go back to something you mentioned before about the case that was actually here, started here. It's through sexual contact that Zika virus can be spread as well?
Yes, the greatest risk of getting any arbovirus or viruses that are spread by mosquitoes is by mosquito bite. Unfortunately, there's a second mode of transmission with Zika, and that's through sexual activity. So our advisory is to the medical community that when they have someone that presents with associated travel history, that they screen them for not only Zika, but chikungunya and dengue, which are other viruses that are circulating in the Americas as far as the tropics. And once we are able to distinguish which one of those viruses are actually causing the illness, we advise those particular individuals that during their first week of illness to avoid subsequent mosquito bites, because we don't want those viruses to be introduced into our local mosquito population.
At all, we don't want that either. So how else can it be spread then? It's sexual contact, it can be spread through the bite itself, and is that it?
Those are the main 2 ways that it's spread, but 90+% of Zika's spread is going to be through mosquito bite. We have to be mindful of the fact that even Zika is a pending threat as far as looming on the horizon in the United States, but our greatest threat is going to be still West Nile, which has been endemic in our area since 2002.
Okay, so mosquitoes are all over North Texas. It's inevitable you're going to see some, and you may get bit by one. So what kind of symptoms should people look for if you're bit by a mosquito?
Well, in looking at these 3 viruses, I'm talking about chikungunya, dengue, and Zika, they relatively have mild flu-like illnesses, those individuals that become symptomatic. However, with Zika, the vast majority of individuals that are infected will have no symptoms whatsoever.
Wow.
And in turn, they will develop lifetime immunity. Of those individuals that become symptomatic, our health advisories have informed clinicians that if someone presents with associated travel history, they notify the health department so we can do an actual test to see which one of those viruses are circulating and to advise those citizens that are symptomatic to avoid aspirin, because if they have dengue, that can complicate the bleeding risk associated with dengue. In regards to Zika and chikungunya, the symptoms overlap. So the main thing is that when we have sent out travel advisory associated with the state health department as well as CDC, that if you're traveling to those endemic areas, that you avoid mosquito bites, that you wear long sleeve, long pants, that you select housing or a hotel that has screens on the windows and doors and air conditioning. But you know, we go into the tropics where people want to get that sea breeze, but in turn, you're increasing the threat that you might encounter a mosquito bite. Wow. So those are measures that we've advised through the airports, being mindful of those that are just going across the border right here in South Texas into Mexico, because Zika is just down to the south. So we're kind of predicting that the Zika phenomenon will be kind of similar to dengue. We might see sporadic outbreaks, but we don't think it'll become indigenous, or it'll be a long-term infection in our local mosquitoes, that because we're a more temperate climate, that we might see just more likely imported cases versus locally acquired cases.
Well, at least there's a little bit of good news right there when it comes to Zika virus. So you mentioned aspirin possibly complicating things, and that's why it's important for people to seek medical aid and to find out what exactly they do have. So are there treatments or vaccinations for any of these?
No, in regards to those three viruses that are of greatest concern, Zika being definitely more so because of the birth associated defects in pregnant women. With dengue, it's a more of a hemorrhagic illness where people can actually start to bleed. So you don't want to give anything or take anything that can actually decrease your clotting time. In other words, you're more likely to bleed if you take aspirin or ibuprofen or, for that matter, naproxen. So that's why we advise individuals that have associated travel history to become symptomatic with flu-like illness and so forth to seek medical attention so we can give them the proper guidance.
Okay, and so you mentioned pregnant women, and we hear a lot about possibility of birth defects, and there have been many reported worldwide. So what advice do you have for pregnant women?
Well, the advisory that we have given and associated with the CDC is that if you can delay or avoid travel to the tropical regions of this hemisphere, being the Caribbean, Central and South America, then delay going to those areas. If you have to travel for whatever reason, to visit friends, family, business, etc., that you utilize the 4 Ds. Dress appropriately, insect repellent, use it based on label instructions. Unfortunately, some people say, I use my insect repellent, and we say, well, how often? One time. What is the label instruction? Oh, there's a label instruction on the, well, no. You have to reapply. And especially if you're sweating and you become in contact with water, you're gonna actually have to reapply. In association with sunscreen, I advise everyone to use sunscreen because the sun is also life-giving, but it also can cause complications for skin problems. That you apply the sunscreen first and then the insect repellent on top of that.
Good advice. And we're going to talk a bit more about those Ds in just a little while, but I want to go back and talk about the Zika virus in particular. In Dallas County, you're already getting several cases reported, including right here in Irving. Any predictions on just how much it might spread?
The vast majority of the cases that we will confirm will be travel associated.
Well, thank you for that information. I know some people may have international plans when you talk about travel associated, especially with the Olympics taking place this summer. They may be even headed to Brazil. So what do you recommend to those who are traveling?
Well, before I answer that question, you have to keep in mind that we have quite a few Olympians that are basically saying, well, future of having a family or actually winning a gold medal. And some have opted out to say, well, I'll favor on the side of my future, possibly having children. So we have some Olympians that are going to be withdrawing because they don't want to encounter that risk, even though it might be a relatively small risk. But if you're the one that infected with Zika and it possibly impact your offspring, then that's 100% and as far as it applies to you. So our advice, again, that you select housing that's modernized, that has air conditioning, screen windows and doors, and if you're going to go out into the outside environment, that you use the insect repellent and so forth, and to minimize your risk. And then once you return, the CDC has advised us that if a pregnant woman returns to the area or she has a partner that has travel history, that they can request through their medical provider screening for Zika.
Wow, thank you for that information. It's incredible that a little bitty mosquito can do all this. People who've trained all their lives to go to the Olympics are now considering not going because of something as simple as a mosquito and as much danger as they can actually cause. Thank you. Now, Thomas, I'm coming back to you because a lot of people now, after hearing all that, are probably saying, you know, I wish that we could actually have you out spraying all day long and all night long, every day, every night. How often do you spray for mosquitoes here?
Well, we have a protocol that we follow, and it's basically following the CDC recommendation when it comes to spraying. That's why we set so many traps throughout the city, and we continually monitoring the same places. We're looking for disease in mosquitoes. And when we find it, that's when we go out and we'll go ahead and spray. We occasionally have sprayed for high numbers, meaning we'll set a trap and we catch over 100 female mosquitoes. We've kind of drawn back from that a little bit and kind of somewhat increased that number because certain mosquitoes are out in the environment that aren't necessarily a threat for carrying or for people to catch West Nile or some other mosquito diseases at this time. So we basically want to identify the mosquitoes, and when we do that, we can see, yes, it's a good idea to spray just for numbers, but we also don't want to be spraying every week or every other week in the same area. We have to follow label instructions on the pesticides, and when there's not a human health threat, we have some restrictions as far as when we can and should spray. So basically, we've had so much instances of West Nile in our mosquito population, even though you may not see that correlate in the human side of it, meaning less human cases, but a real spike in mosquito activity from last summer and West Nile in those mosquitoes. One of the largest spikes we've seen in some time. So we got to the point where, just from a financial standpoint and an environmental responsible standpoint, where we were just spraying just when we found disease, and that kept us plenty busy as opposed to just spraying with high populations and disease. So we really didn't have a choice. We had to just do the disease part. And this year seemingly is going to be similar to last year as far as West Nile numbers and mosquitoes and just the population of mosquitoes. So we'll continue to do that as well. So.
Thank you. You know, a lot of people have a lot of questions about the spray, and you kind of touched on that, you know, you're erring on the side of caution and safety. So how does the spraying impact people and pets?
Quite minimally. We go out typically for West Nile spray. We'll do it in the middle of the night or early, usually starting around 9:30, 10. Most people are up inside their homes at that point. We'll go spray. This is a minimally impactive type of pesticide we use. It targets mosquitoes. Although the chemical can show effects and kill other insects, the time of day or the time of night we're spraying is when those mosquitoes are active, meaning butterflies, bees, other things like that are holed up somewhere and they're not out in the environment. So when we spray, it's designed to where it has to touch the mosquito in order to kill it, meaning they have to fly into it, and that's why we spray when we spray for West Nile mosquitoes.
So we were looking at some video of spraying being done right now, and I see they're in the trucks. But why not aerial spraying? Why isn't that being done?
That's when cities will aerial spray, especially in Dallas County. That's an extraordinary event for It's an extraordinary measure for high instances of human rates of human West Nile cases. We don't necessarily think that's always the best way to go. Last time we did it was 2012. The time before that was, I believe, 1968. So there's a huge gap of many, many years where there wasn't something that we needed to do in our area. So we don't anticipate that's going to be the case this year, but we are preparing for it in case we need to. The city of Irving didn't do any aerial spraying in 2012 because the data in our city suggested that the main threat was pretty much subsided at that point when other cities decided to spray. So our test results were coming back and we didn't see a high, what we call a vector index for West Nile. Mm-hmm. It was very low at that point, meaning we weren't finding West Nile at the point they started spraying in the city of Irving in our mosquito samples. So that's why we said, well, we don't really need to. The data suggests we don't. And so we opted out of that.
Well, good. It's good to hear the city is on it. They're spraying and doing their part, but there's a lot that residents can do to protect themselves too. So let's go back, you two, and talk a little bit more about the D's. And we're going to talk about the 4 D's, and we'll go back and forth between the two of you. And we'll start with you, Dr. Perkins. Dusk and dawn. For those who don't quite understand exactly what that means, elaborate for us.
Okay, in regards to West Nile and the Zika, we're talking about two different species of mosquito. We have the Culex mosquito for West Nile, and then we have the Aedes mosquitoes for the Zika. The West Nile mosquito is more of a nighttime mosquito, late evening, nighttime, where the Aedes mosquitoes, there are a couple of species that can possibly carry Zika. They're daytime
Oh, great.
mosquitoes.
I was trying to avoid the dusk and the dawn, and now there's daytime mosquitoes
Right.
that can harm us
However,
too?
they are quite active during dusk and dawn, but they tend to feed throughout the day.
Oh,
So
my.
now our saying when it comes to DEET, insect repellent, that you apply all day, every day.
Wow. Wow. So I was thinking I was doing good by running in the middle of the day instead of early morning or night, and now you tell me this. Thanks, Dr. Perkins. I think the
welcome.
treadmill's going to see me more often these days.
I'm just a messenger.
I appreciate you. And now back to you, Thomas. Let's talk about dress. How should we dress to protect ourselves?
You should definitely wear long sleeves, long pants. You should cover as much exposed skin as you possibly can. Most mosquitoes don't have the ability to puncture through your clothes unless you're wearing something exceptionally thin. Most normal clothes, cotton clothes, will prevent you mosquito from actually biting you. So you want to cover as much skin as you possibly can. In areas that you don't have coverage by your clothing, go ahead and apply a DEET product that should adequately protect you from mosquito bites.
I see. And then I'm going to ask you the next one because I know Dr. Perkins mentioned DEET a little bit, and you've got something sitting right in front of you. So tell us about DEET.
DEET is it's a chemical that you're going to go and apply to your skin. So mosquitoes don't like it. They're going to avoid it. Now, it is very important when you use a product like that is to follow label instructions. In laboratory tests, you can have a dime-sized area on your hand to where you didn't apply DEET, and everywhere else there's DEET, and the mosquito will find that spot. So you want to apply it, have full coverage on your exposed skin. It is also, I can't stress enough how important it is to read the label. One thing it's going to tell you is don't spray it in your face. It's not a good thing. You don't want to inhale the stuff. You definitely don't want it in your eyes. Another thing it's going to tell you on the label is don't spray it on your skin and then put a shirt over yourself. Okay, you don't need to spray your chest and then put a shirt on. Don't do that either. You're going to absorb more of the DEET in your system through your skin than is necessary. So don't do that. But as long as you apply it the way the label says, it's very effective. And a lot of people do say they apply a product and it doesn't work. Most likely, they're not using it the proper way.
Interesting. I want to touch more on that. You said don't spray it on yourself, put on the shirt and then go out. But another thing that reminds me of the fact that I do like to run, as I mentioned, and you sweat. And I've read where that can attract more mosquitoes to you when you sweat, or when you're pregnant, that can attract mosquitoes to you. Is that true?
Absolutely. A mosquito is they see differently. They see in infrared and they can detect CO2, which we breathe out when, and if you're exerting yourself, you're going to be expelling more CO2. So some species of mosquitoes can detect you from up to 50, maybe 60 yards away. That's a pretty long distance, especially if you're exerting yourself. But once they get near you and you have you're wearing the right kind of clothes and you have your DEET product on, they're going to avoid you.
I see. And talking more about the pregnancy, when I was out pregnant and running, I know that, that it's attractive to mosquitoes, I'm told. Pregnant women, like you said, there's you and the baby that they're attracted to then.
Yeah.
And then also there are people who should not use DEET once you have that baby. Not putting DEET on a child is recommended, right? On a young baby?
Right. A newborn up to 6 months is not recommended, and the label is going to tell you that as well. And when somebody does, an adult or a mother does apply it, typically, sometimes they may want to think about putting on their hands first. DEET doesn't just come in a spray. There's also wipes, like wet naps you could buy that has DEET in the product, so you can rub it on as well. That's also very beneficial if you're somebody who travels. Keep a DEET pack, wet nap in your car. In the middle of August, this can be a hazard if you leave it in your car and it gets too hot. There's a potential. It's compressed can, so it could explode. So having something like that is much more portable, easy to keep in a purse or a pocket, than something like this, and just as effective.
Makes sense. Thank you. Now, Dr. Perkins, I want to talk to you about drain. What does that mean when you do the D's and we say drain?
Well, part of the life cycle of a mosquito, the vast majority of its life cycle is associated with water. So if you have standing water in and around your home, neighborhood, etc., if you cannot drain it, then you need to apply larvicide, which will actually interfere with the development of the eggs, the larvae, pupae, and keep them in that state, because the greatest threat of a mosquito is a flying mosquito. So long as they're not able to fly, they're not a threat, but we don't want them to mature enough to be a flying mosquito. So if you cannot drain or dump the standing water, then you can apply larvicide, which is a granule type material that actually gets inside of the developing larvae of the mosquito and cause them not to mature to flying adults. Another thing that you can do, if you cannot drain or dump or do not apply larvicide, put a screen netting over the area so the mosquitoes cannot actually get to the water and lay their eggs. Okay. And we have to be mindful of the fact that the mosquitoes, the greatest threat is going to be from the female mosquitoes. They're the only ones that bite us.
Oh, really?
So I just want to let us know that we tend to single out all mosquitoes, but when it comes to the ones that are the greatest threat, when she's ready to lay her eggs, she needs a protein meal to incorporate into her egg development. So she seeks out a blood meal.
Fascinating.
So in the meantime, the other times when they're not seeking out a blood meal, they're just like similar to butterflies and bees. They're getting the nectar from the plants.
Wow. We prefer they do that, get them from the plants and flowers. So I want to come back to you quickly, because I understand the city has dunks, right?
Yeah, we give away mosquito dunks that are provided through a donation from the county, Dallas County. We make those available at our rec centers. Also at City Hall, we have them available. You can get them from the Parks and Rec Department or the help desk at City Hall. And we typically limit that to 1 packet of dunks per household. But you know, if somebody needs more, they can either go back and request another one from their rec center, or they can call me up. Most of the time, we'll go ahead and just deliver them to somebody if they can't make it out there. Wonderful. We want everybody to have an opportunity to get those dunks. So we have no problem knocking on your door and saying, here you go.
Wonderful. Now, Dr. Perkins, we started talking about Zika virus first because everybody's talking about that right now. It's in the headlines.
Yes.
But let's talk more about West Nile virus. How serious is that right now?
In regards to what's endemic, what's here in our local environment, is West Nile. It's a bird disease. So the birds, for whatever reason, they might have a mild season or a very, very severe season. The bird population is when people might notice a certain different species of birds are now found in the park or in their neighborhood, etc. As far as Dallas County Health and Human Services, they can actually call in and say, I've noticed this particular species of bird, maybe like a mockingbird or of some sort. And that'll be like a clue, like, this might be an unusual season. And the birds transmit the virus to the mosquito, and then when she needs to get a subsequent blood meal, if another bird's not available, she's gonna look for another vertebrate animal. And if we happen to cross paths with her, then we might be on the menu.
So we're thinking, oh, these beautiful birds have just come into our neighborhood. Look at this, and they're really bringing in these mosquitoes that we should be concerned about.
There's the virus that can actually infect the mosquito, and then in turn go out throughout the neighborhood as far as our neighbors. Yes.
You guys have some fascinating information today. Let me ask you about this then. So what are the symptoms for West Nile? If you're bit by a mosquito and you have West Nile symptoms, what are they?
Fortunately, when it comes to viruses, the symptoms are very similar. Okay. So think of more like the flu, a mild to moderate flu, and most people at some point in time have had influenza, seasonal flu. So in the summertime, if you have flu-like illness and you have an obvious mosquito bite, or you think you might have gotten bitten, then that's a clue that you need to go get seen, so we can do the West Nile virus PCR test on the citizen that's having symptoms. Similar with Zika, chikungunya, and dengue, it's going to still be more like fever, muscle aches, fatigue, headache, a rash. Others might have a little GI upset, diarrhea, upset stomach, etc. So with public health, our job is to kind of constantly conduct surveillance on the human, on the citizens of our county, so we can get an idea of what's going on, so we can intervene and try to avoid or stop an outbreak.
I'm glad you mentioned humans, but also pets are a huge concern. So how can we protect our pets from getting any of these diseases?
Well, fortunately, when it comes to our pets, I even have a question in to CDC, Dr. McAllister in Colorado, regarding Zika in pets. When it comes to West Nile and so forth, the threat is not as great. They generally not as symptomatic or become as severely ill as we are. So basically, the impetus is still on humans protecting themselves. If you're eliminating standing water, you're doing everything possible to decrease the breeding sites of mosquitoes. That in turn will protect your pets as well.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Now, Thomas, I want to come and talk to you because I know the city has a lot of things that they're doing to protect us. And it's really fascinating that you have lots of resources, including your very own lab, right?
Yeah, we have a lab in the city of Irving, and what we'll do is we'll set up a mosquito trap in somebody's yard. We'll take those samples and we can test it for West Nile in the city of Irving, and we can get results back really quickly with this process. So what that does for the resident is either puts their mind at ease and know that, hey, okay, well, we caught 50 mosquitoes in my backyard, which is in a very high number, and there's no West Nile at this time. So that can dispel a little bit of fears.
Okay, so Thomas, tell me, how do you work with Dallas County and the state also?
Very closely. Most of my information comes from the CDC, somewhat the WHO, World Health Organization, but one-on-one I get to meet with people from the county, talk about, they sort of train us on how to do things. We get around and do kind of roundtable talks about what our concerns are, what we need to do, how we need to fight, let's say Zika, that we came to realize, we don't have all the right equipment we need for this season. So we were advised to try this, product and this method. This is what the CDC has been recommending. So we went out and bought and purchased some new things that we can use in case we have a Zika outbreak. It's not difficult to do some of these things. We just had to go out and get some of the products to be able to do that.
I see. And so how can residents find out when and where spraying will take place?
There's two ways to do it. You can go a little bit longer way, go straight to the City of Irving website, cityofirving.org, and go under services where you see the mosquito control, or you can go straight to that same website at irvingfightsthebite.org. On there, there'll be a spraying map. It's on the left-hand side, and it'll show you when we plan to spray somewhere, and it shows you our trapping location. There's little circles around each one of those locations, and what that represents is basically for West Nile spraying, there's a half-mile radius around where we put the mosquito trap, and we do that because these types of mosquitoes have a half-mile flight range. So we know if we have a positive mosquito, West Nile mosquito, that they kind of come from anywhere within this half-mile range. So that's the target area, and that's what we'll go and spray.
Okay, and one more thing, we're just about out of time, but I understand there is a mosquito hotline. When should we use that? 24
hours a day. Anytime you see standing water, you have a concern of maybe a stagnant swimming pool, some vacant property, anytime you have a question regarding anything that covers the whole gambit of mosquito and mosquito diseases, any type of concern whatsoever, go ahead and call. And most likely we're out in the field, but leave a message. We check it once or twice a day. We'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. And sometimes we leave messages and we'll go out and we'll handle it. We'll take care of that concern, ease the public conscious a little bit.
Wonderful. Well, y'all have answered so many questions today. I want to thank you both for taking time out of your busy schedules during this busy mosquito season to answer questions we have. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you for watching. I'm Starlene Stringer. Please be sure to join us on our next edition of Open Line, which will take place on June 2nd at 1:30 p.m. We will be expanding the focus by talking about all summer health concerns. So if you have questions, email them to ictn@cityofirving.org, and we'll get answers for you on our next edition of Open Line. We'll see you then.